Welcome to the Culture is Healing podcast, brought to you by Checking In. At Checking In, we create customized wellness apps for First Nations communities, guided by relationship, trust, and community knowledge. We're also grateful to share our Pathways to Healing tool, which supports frontline and support staff in helping community members access healing houses more quickly and with care. To learn more about our work, please visit www.checkingin.co. Thank you for being here and for spending time with us. I hope you enjoy the episode. Aichka. Aitsquail siamnit siaya, each while, anthapat hokwaletsat, anit staminas, halalt, kawitsan, laxan. Hello, everyone. My traditional name is Hokwaletsat. My English name is George Harris Jr., and I'm calling you today from my home here in Staminas. This is the community that my father is from. This is the community that my mother married into. And this is the community my siblings and I were raised in. I belong to George Harris Sr. and my late mother, Sylvia Harris. And my grandparents from my father's side of my family are the late Lawrence and Irene Harris. And my grandparents from my mother's side of my family are the late Bernard and Nora George. And my familial connections to Halalt come from my mother, Sylvia, and my grandmother, Nora. And my connections to Kawitsan come from my grandfather, Bernard. And through both sides of my family, I have familial connections to Layaxan. And the name Hokwaletsat, it's a name that's been passed down for many generations throughout my family. And I have the honor and privilege of being able to share that name along with my father, as well as a few other family members. And thank you all so much for taking the time to come in and sitting down today and listening to another episode of the Culture is Healing podcast. Once again, my name is Hokwaletsat, and I'm the host of the Culture is Healing podcast. And I'd like to open the floor to a friend of mine, Aleen, to come and introduce herself to you all today. Aleen?
Thank you, George. Hello, everybody. My name is Aleen Sparrow, and I come from the Musqueam people, or Musqueam people. My mother is Deborah Sparrow, and my father's name was Albert Bagshaw, the late Albert Bagshaw. My mother is from Musqueam, and my father was half Haida Gwaii, half German. My traditional name is Alma Flott, and that was given to me by my great-grandmother, Rose Sparrow, who was the wife of my great-grandfather, Edward Sparrow, who was Musqueam. And my great-grandmother, Rose, was from Chiam. And yeah, I'm very honored to be here today, George. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this is a really awesome opportunity to sit down. We've shared many times before. I think our paths have crossed quite a few times over the last few years, but we haven't had the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation. And this is a beautiful time to come together to share. As we're talking a lot about our cultural ways of being, and it's becoming more accessible for us to be able to share a little bit more about our culture and a little bit more about our teachings. And this is an amazing place that we have created to come and share and have those meaningful conversations and, utilize the technology that we have today to be able to share in these conversations. And, hopping right into it, our name of our podcast is Culture is Healing. This is something that means a lot to me personally, means a lot to so many of our people, across our territories. Our culture holds such great power for you and I and for so many of our people. And, I know for me personally, it's, if it wasn't for my culture, I'm not even sure I'd be here today. I was able to follow my parents around to, our longhouse. Had the opportunity to follow my and drive my mother to, a lot of the places where she went to provide cultural support and cultural healing for a lot of our people. So I got to witness a lot of amazing things happening, and a lot of it all came back down to our culture that brought healing to a lot of our people. So, and would love to hear from you, Aleen, to um, hear your thoughts. When I have the opportunity to say culture is healing, what does that mean to you?
Mm, well, I think I agree with your sentiment that culture, I think a lot of our people hear the saying that culture saves lives, and it definitely has done that for me. I'm very open with my journey these last 4 years of sobriety. And it hasn't been a perfect road. There's definitely been moments where I've kind of had a few setbacks, but I call it a journey because I always come back to it these last 4 years. Um, and it has been our culture that has always grounded me and brought me back to where I am. So, sitting at my loom and weaving because I'm a weaver has helped steer me on the right path, and also with our canoe pulling, um, that also has played a really huge role in my life. Um, I've been raised in a house where I've been raised at the foot of my mom's loom. My mom
Mm,
she was a part of the revitalization movement that happened in Musqueam for Salish weaving almost 40 years ago. After there was no weaving in our community for almost 80 years, there was a group of very beautiful, powerful women who came together in Musqueam and had to teach themselves. They didn't have anyone to teach them how to weave.
mm,
They visited museums in New York and Seattle and here at MOA and taught themselves um, to weave. And my mom was able to be a part of the second group of women who did that. And so she's raised me in a house. She's been sober for 40 years, and she's raised me with a deep respect for the work that we do. So I don't think that what I do culturally in terms of weaving, I don't call it a hobby or a craft. Um, Even our canoe pulling, it's been a very protective boundary for me. Like I said, it's always pulled me back and grounded me into who I am. My mom has raised me to understand that the work that we do has a spirit, and that spirit deserves the utmost respect and integrity. And so, for that reason, I didn't start weaving until I was in my 30s. And I just really felt like the work that I was doing, the medicine that our culture is, um, I just wanted to give it the love and the respect that it deserved. And so, yeah, that's kind of that's the part that culture has really played in my life. And not I think not only the physical acts of culture, though, like the weaving and the canoe pulling, those are our physical acts of doing. But what I found was that it was the community that I built in those spaces that really healed who I was.
mm,
So weaving has connected me to something much larger than myself. It's not only connected me to spirit, but it's connected me to different communities, not only in Musqueam and not only in our Salish territory, but around the whole world.
mm,
And so when I'm out in the city or I'm out doing different work, so many people approach me, and especially from different Indigenous backgrounds, and they get so excited because they see my work and they see themselves and they see their culture and they see their patterns, because I think our inspiration comes from nature. And so we'll see a lot of similar patterns in our work
mm,
from Indigenous cultures around the world. And then when I'm canoe pulling, and this is something that I'm very new to and that I'm just learning about, I've only been pulling for a few years. A lot of the healing for me happened on the beach because I
mm,
built a new I mean, I say new community, but these are people I've known my whole life that I've grown up in community with, but I've built a new connection with. And so
Mm,
to be able to be a part of that and be a part of those families and to be a part of the laughter and the love and the teachings that's happening on the beach, that healed a big part of me. And that's something that I look forward to every year. Being on the water is medicine in itself, but sitting on the beach with everybody, and I mean, sometimes I sit back and I look at the beach when we're on, like when we're practicing down at the river, and the kids, like the tide's out and the kids are playing in the sand, and our family is sitting up on the beach and everyone's eating and laughing, and that is like that's what heals me right there.
mm,
And so, like I said, it's not. It is the physical act of doing, but it's also the family and the life that you build around it. So
mm, Heichke. Yeah, I love, hearing those connections back to, culture. That means so much to so many of our people. I know, our work here, checking in, I have the opportunity to, share a lot of amazing stories and be able to connect back to our culture to promote healing for our people. And that's like the foundation of the work that we're doing, is like we created a lot of customized wellness tools for indigenous communities, focusing on culture, language, and our traditional ways of being to promote healing for our people. And it's been such an amazing journey. We've also kind of moved forward into looking at the health and wellness of our people. There are so many of our people, much like you and I, who had made that choice to follow and walk on that red road. And um, we've created a tool for the helpers in community, those support staff, to help those helpers get our relatives into detox and treatment, um, and even looking at what it's like for our relatives when they come home
mhm,
from those healing houses, and Western terms they call them treatment centers. And I know that was a big um, component that I really had, like a strong belief in, and a lot of it comes down to like my own experiences within supporting, being that helper to helping people when they come home. And I remember helping a family um, after they came home and were getting close to like a reunification with their children. And I had the opportunity to sit down with the family and social worker and the drug and alcohol counselor, sharing, some of our teachings, and asking the family, like, okay, we end up doing um, the drug and alcohol counselor like held a letter burning ceremony for the
mhm,
family. And so he had them like write through, like, okay, this is the old me. And after we were done, and you're releasing this old part of yourself, on this paper, and we're going to send it off to creator. And so that was really amazing to witness the support that and cultural teachings that came through all of that, to witness all of that. And we, luckily enough, like, we have a space in our community. It's used as a sweat lodge, but it's also kind of a more of a healing space where we had there's a wood burning fireplace in there, and we got to you know watch the family, as they through this paper, and that held those old aspects of who they were. And yeah, it was powerful to be able to witness all of that, and tying back into that culture aspect of strength that is provided for our people as we engage in who we are and where we come from. So yeah, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for allowing me to share mine as well,
Yeah, of course.
Aitchka. And as we kind of tying into some of our culture and our ceremonies, and I just shared one. And are there any cultural ceremonies that you've witnessed or had partaken in that really hold a special place in your heart?
Not so much ceremonies. Like, I think, well, every time I think I approach my loom, that's ceremony in itself. That's something that feels very sacred to me, and something that's very grounding, and something that's taught me patience and presence. I call it my moving meditation. So, and same with canoe pulling. I think once I quit drinking, I started to learn more about being present in my body and my mind, and learned that I have ADHD, and that's something that presents very differently in women than it does in men. And so I might not be fidgety and acting crazy, maybe a little bit sometimes, but for the most part, it's going on in my head. And so weaving and canoe pulling are two things that very much calmed my mind down, because it requires me to be patient, and it requires me um, to focus, and just having those repetitive movements really helps me. So that feels like ceremony in itself, and that's something that I've been doing a lot of workshops for elementary schools around the city, and that's something that I'm teaching the children. And I tell them that weaving is a moving meditation, and before we start class, let's do some deep breathing,
Mm.
and let's think about somebody that's very special to you, and let's put that good energy into the work that you're doing. And so that is something that I feel is very ceremonial to me. And another thing that I think, it might not be so much ceremony, but in a way I think it is so the last 5 or 6 years I've been modeling with Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week. And this is something that holds a very, very close place in my heart,
Mm.
um, because I think that what Jolene has created at Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week is almost ceremonial for our Vancouver urban Indigenous community.
Mm.
Maybe our members who didn't grow up on reserve, or who were disconnected, or grew up in care. This is like a cultural hub that she's created. And I just think that it's something it's a beautiful space. And growing up on the west side of Vancouver, like I think Vancouver, like Musqueam is like where our reserve is very urban. We're right smack in the city. And I went to school at a Catholic school on the west side of Vancouver. And so even though I grew up on reserve, and I grew up at my mom's loom with my great grandfather coming over, and kind of immersed in our culture and community, I also grew up with a lot of shame. And I think that was due to just going to school at the school that I did, and experiencing a lot of bullying and shame for being Indigenous. And
Mm.
um, so when I joined Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week, it really helped pivot my mind frame around um, being Indigenous in the city. Um,
Mm.
and so I think that um, being in a city like Vancouver, being Indigenous sometimes can almost make you feel invisible. And that's something I definitely experienced, because I've had a lot of jobs and careers working out in the city. And so um, I think that Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week um, is a place where our urban Indigenous community doesn't have to just survive, but they get to thrive. And I think that Jolene talks a lot about mentorship, um,
Mm.
how mentorship can be medicine, and by creating space for, like she's building almost like a safe haven through connection through identity. And so that for me, every year, I look forward to it. That feels ceremonial, because we've had like photographers who have come backstage there and talk about
Mm.
how Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week is so different than any other fashion week that they've experienced. And that's because what we've built and what, well, I say we, but mostly like what everyone has built in the backstage is family and connection and culture and healing for everyone that's there. Um, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of food, there's a lot of like, somebody once asked me how I prepare for Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week. They're like, "Oh, do you fast?" And I'm like, what is fasting? No, we don't do that here.
Mm.
We eat, like we're in the back and we're eating fried bread. Like the
Mm.
clothes are made to fit us, not the other way around. And so yeah, I know that like when we talk about ceremony and culture, we think a lot about our longhouses and we think about weaving. But it can be so much bigger than that. Well, not bigger than that, but there can be mean so much other things, right? So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I know, like, even just kind of reflecting on, it doesn't have to be, anything huge that we do to engage in our traditional ways. And I know for me, you know, looking on my desk, you know, every day, like every day that I come into my office and I do my work, I follow, my grandma Nora's teachings, and she often had, lit a candle every morning, like when she was getting prepared to do work. And she always said she always lit that candle for protection, because we never know what creator is gonna bring our way from a day to day aspect. And so she always lit a candle and prayed for wisdom, strength, and guidance to carry her throughout the day. And and this morning for me, was a little bit of a different morning. I had recently had, I was working on talking about some of that shame and some of those hardships. For me, even just a couple weeks ago, I spent some time over in your territory. And yeah, I experienced some hardships, like even before heading over. Like, I was still on the island, and had a security guard who was, we're my stylist and I were heading into like Starbucks after, like, we went through drive through, and we were heading over onto the ferry, but we had a lot more time than anticipated, so decided to just wait in the parking lot, and then go for a bathroom break. And then, so my wife went first, and then she came back, and as I got out, there was a security guard who was kind of making his way over to the Starbucks area. And um, it was kind of staring me down, and I was just like, like it just felt, off. And so I just, you know, I pulled my phone out just in case anything was gonna happen.
Mhm.
And I had to walk around a vehicle to get towards the door, and he started to like walk and like walk and cross my path, and I was like, "Oh gosh, here we go." And
Yeah.
luckily for me, like, nothing happened. And then, a couple of days later, we were out and about and all over like the lower mainland, going to some like liquidation stores. And um, the second stop we had, we got greeted at the door by one of the workers. And so I, turned and said hi, and just being cordial. Yeah, and it wasn't too long into my time, shopping around in this store, that I noticed that she was following me. And I was just
Mm.
like, oh man, here we go again. This is one of those times where, we're the, getting to understand a lot more. A lot of our people, know and understand those feelings of, not being trusted, and not being respected in any of these spaces. And so you know, I end up writing in through my other work, like a Teachings Tuesday, about this, and it got released yesterday. And so I was thinking about it yesterday and today. I was thinking about my grandma and how she carried and conducted herself when she walked this earth. she always like said, even when she came across hardships, she's like, you pray for those people, like you don't know. And so today was a different day for me, where I took time in my morning to, say, ask for prayers for, wisdom, strength, and guidance, and then also saying prayers for those people who were judging me before they even knew me. And hopefully that, my interaction with them can be something that changes their mind about us and our
Mhm.
people. And yeah, so I was, saying prayer for those two individuals that, had their own forms of microaggressions towards me that weekend. And so
Mm.
yet again,
I'm
kind of
sorry you
thinking
did
about the,
experience that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was something else for sure. Because yeah, it's a shame that it's still happening, but
Yeah.
hopefully it'll continue to get better throughout time.
Well,
And
when you share podcasts like this and people can see the beauty and the resilience of our people rather than what they've heard from past experiences or what's the word I'm looking for? They have those notions of who we are, right? And when you share things like this, then people can see that it's the humanity underneath of who we are
yeah,
as Indigenous people.
hmm yeah, changing that narrative.
We are.
That's right. Yeah.
And
So
I
yeah,
love the sobriety movement too. I think so many young Indigenous people are getting sober, and I am so here for it. I love it. And that's why
that's
I'm always
amazing.
so open to sharing. I've shared with many people my sobriety journey, and I find that a lot of the non-Indigenous people always say, "Oh, thank you for being vulnerable." And uh, I always think like I'm not being vulnerable. I'm just sharing who I am and like what shaped me. And I think that that's something to be proud of as Indigenous people because there's always been that stereotype that we're just a bunch of drunk Indians, but we're not.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
and yet
there's
again, I think it's you know, there's so many other people around in this world too who are and have experiences in those hardships of drugs and alcohol. And
mhm,
it's just a lot of the times, yet again, those stereotypes of our people that we're working to dismantle. And and like you and I for sure are two individuals who are not ashamed to share about our past,
yeah,
because it's definitely something that shaped us. And yet again, I think, you and I both share that same common aspect of, sure, that might have been part of our past, but it's really pushed us towards the healing that we found now. And
absolutely.
that stronger engagement into our culture. And, whether it's ceremony or if it's, like you're sharing earlier, that physical aspect of being involved in culture where you're doing your weaving and your canoe pulling.
Mhm,
And so there's definitely a lot of strength that does come from those vulnerabilities that we do share, but
mhm.
it really just ties back to the strength that we carry within us because of our connection back to culture and community. So for
Absolutely.
sure.
And it's, I've had like a lot of youth as well reach out because I do share publicly and I share on my socials about my journey. And a lot of youth have reached out and said, thank you for showing that there's other ways of living because I understand that my journey to sobriety I've, it was a little bit of privilege for me because my mother did the work. She raised me 40 years of sobriety. So I understand that not everybody has had that opportunity in our communities to be raised that way. And so if I can share what's helped me and what's gotten me to where I am today, and that can help somebody even just a little bit, then I'd be very happy to, yeah.
It's nice when we have those cycle breakers in our own homes for sure. And
Mm-hmm,
I'm the
mm-hmm,
same way. My father quit drinking once my eldest sister was born, because my mother had mentioned to him that I don't want my daughter to be raised in a home with someone who consumes alcohol.
mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do that, then you're going to have to just come and visit when you're sober. And my dad was like, oh no, that's not happening. Like, I need
Yeah.
to be around my wife, I need to be around my daughter. And so he made the choice that day. He quit cold turkey. And it's kind of fun to watch and to witness, because like, uh, very frequently, especially on my sister's birthday, my dad will turn to her and he'll say, how old are you now? And she'll say the number, and then he'll be like, that's how long I've been sober. And so it's really cool to
It's
see. and
amazing.
and and
You
my
get a double
mother,
birthday
she
cake.
yeah, exactly. And like for my mother, she's one of the ones who, throughout her whole life was able to say that she never drank, she never did drugs, and so she was very,
Wow.
very strong. And so it's really cool. And yeah, and so thank you for sharing,
Of course.
your story. And then hopefully that, the young ones coming behind us, the children and grandchildren, can see and hear our stories and find strength in them.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere there's a stat that the generation younger than us, um, like the alcohol sales have gone down significantly because they're not drinking as much as our generation and older. And
Mm.
so there's hope. That
Hmm.
was good to read.
Mm. That's so good. Yeah. Yeah, and as we're kind of taking a look into, some of those teachings that have been passed down to us, and the teachings that we're passing on to others. What are some of those teachings that have been shared with you that really help guide you, in your daily walk?
Um, I think hmm, when I really think about what's been shared with me and some of the teachings that I've learned and what I want to share, I think that for generations, a lot of our culture has had to go underground um, as a survival tactic. So the potlatch ban happened, and everything kind of went private. Um, we had to kind of use it as a survival tactic, and um, I think that what I've learned, like I say reclaiming, even though I was born and raised on the reserve, but I think because I was so um, kind of like I was in the city and I wasn't paying attention. So I say reclaiming, even though I was born and raised in Musqueam. I think it's a very intimate process, and I truly believe, and this might be a little selfish, but I think because of how underground everything had to go, um, I truly believe that not everything is for public consumption. And so I do say sometimes that I feel a little stingy sometimes with what I
Mm.
have and what I've learned. And I'm always open to sharing with other community members. However, I think one culture, like one teaching that I do um, hold dear to my heart is something that my mom has taught me over the years. And like I said earlier, weaving has really connected me to something larger than myself, to a larger community than myself, and something that my mom always taught me. And a quote that she uses all the time is a quote that Maya Angelou once said, and she says, "We're more alike than we are different."
Mm.
And so a teaching that my mom has given me is that these blankets that we make and the weaving that we do really connects us to a community larger than ourselves, and to really, when we're doing the work that we're doing, to do it with an open heart and to treat everybody the way that you want to be treated, and to be open to connection, and to really just see other people as humans. Like we're all pretty much we're all brothers and sisters in this world. And that's something that weaving has a gift that it has given me. And yeah, yeah,
Mm.
I think, yeah, I think that's,
Mm. Hechka.
mhm,
Yeah, I really love and appreciate that, and yeah, I think for me, what really like resonates with what you're saying too is like I know my West Home grandma, my grandma Nora, she always shared her teachings with so many people who were willing to come and to sit and to listen. Coming into the work with an open heart and an open mind. She always had that understanding of uh, all of our people are here. Our Musqueam, we're here. We're not going anywhere, and the people who've come to find their way and settle into our lands and our territories aren't going anywhere either. And so we had to learn how to like coexist together.
mhm,
And we in our languages, natsamat, like coming together as one is something that my grandma like had strived for. And looking at how my family like carries and conducts themselves, and that same feeling of natsamat. We have had a few um, of our like close personal friends who are non-indigenous and who've been welcomed into our family to learn and to grow from us, and as we learn and grow together. And so thinking of natsamat
mhm,
is something that's really embodied, and it was always showcased and modeled by our my grandma. And so
mhm,
that's something I look at now and look back at fondly for how she carried and really set that tone for like my parents and for me and my sisters. So that's something I often think of. So thank you
yeah.
for
My mom,
sharing.
my mom did well, she was working on a project called Blanket the City.
Mm,
And so she worked with the Vancouver Mural Festival, and she did some murals. She got one on Granville Island.
mm,
There's one on the old Biltmore Hotel on Kingsway. There's one down on Richards where she did some murals with Jan and Buddy, and Ange George or Ange Paul, and they did murals together. And her whole idea behind this project was to share a little bit of our culture with the people who are coming here, and so they can feel that connection as well, which I think is kind of beautiful because, like I said, I'm still learning, and I tend to get a little bit stingy with our culture and
mm,
teaching. But my mom is a little bit further ahead in her healing process, so she wants to share with everyone who's coming here, and she's a good reminder to me to carry myself in that way. And so it's really cool to go out into the city and to see that work. And she always says it's
mm,
not, the work that she does isn't for her. She doesn't want the recognition. It's for our people and it's for our communities, so that when they're out in the city, they can see that and they can feel proud of who they are and where they come from. And hopefully, when there's people who are coming here from around the world, they see our geometric patterns. And like I said, they identify with those too. And so hopefully that gives them um, a little bit of connection to home.
mm,
And uh, when I was down at, I know we were speaking off camera earlier, but when I was down at Jackpool Plaza that one time and I had my loom down there, there were so many different people coming through that I met. And there was one woman in particular who I speak of all the time because she made such a big impact on me.
mm,
And she was from the Ukraine, and she had just arrived, and she was escaping the war, and her family had already lived here, but she had just arrived, and she was a grandmother. She couldn't speak English, but when she arrived at my tent, she saw my loom and she saw my spinner, and it moved her to tears.
mm,
And her daughter had to translate for me and say, this reminds my mom of home, and she's just arrived in the city now, and she's
Mm,
escaping the war, and she just wants to say thank you for being here because this makes her feel a little bit more connected to her people and her community back home.
mm,
And so, yeah, the work that we're doing, even though it's Salish and even though it's Musqueam, is connecting us to something a a lot bigger. So,
mm, that's awesome.
mm,
Oh, that's so powerful to hear too. We never know the impact that we're gonna have on someone through the work that we're doing.
mhm,
And um, even for me, just like some of the smaller things that I'm doing, like sharing, like that Teachings Tuesday that I wrote, and I write quite a few of them from my own like lived experience and sharing my own thoughts and my own feelings. And I've had the opportunity to hear from some of the people who are reading my writing, and they're just like, oh, this is so impactful for me, and sharing the impact that the writing's had. And it's really cool to have some of that feedback, and know some of the impact that our work has on people. So that's it's great. I'm glad you had that opportunity to hear from that lady of the impact you had on her heart.
And see, you said small thing. Like you think it's a small thing for you to just be writing, but you've already made a big change in someone else's life. And so, yeah, you never do know the. When I went down to the event that I was at, I was at Jack Pool Plaza, but it was a Canada Day celebration. And when I agreed to do that event, I didn't clock it that it was Canada Day. So when I got down there, I was feeling a little bit backwards about being there. I was like, do I really want to be here? But I met so many cool people while I was there. Like I said, there was the woman from the Ukraine. I met an elder who wanted to do a leaving exchange from New Zealand. I met people from India and China, and everybody identified with textiles. And so, if you had asked me 10, 20 years ago if I'd be where I am today, I would say absolutely not. I never thought I'd be such a geek for textiles. But now I realize like how many people in the world feel the same way, and it's really cool.
Mm,
And so yeah, yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's just all yet again. I think tying back to what you said earlier, often we're more closely related to so many other people than we're not, right? All of
Mhm.
our similarities are there, and often the only difference is in our skin tones, and maybe our hair colors, or maybe even just some of the languages we speak. But in the fundamental um, things that tie us together as human beings is often the same. We all eat, and we all sleep, and we all have to consume water to exist. And there's so many other things that tie us together than keep us apart. So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, I like that
beautiful.
quote that I don't know who said it, but we're all just walking each other home. And I love that.
Mm, hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
As we're taking a look into some of those teachings that have been shared with us, and I'd love to ask you to share any words of wisdom or advice for the people listening to our podcast. And I'd like to open the floor for you to be able to share.
Um, I think my biggest piece of advice is to build community. That healing doesn't happen alone. It happens when you're in community and when you're with other people. And that's something that our culture has taught me. I guess that's a really deep teaching that I hold is to be present with your community and your people. And if you don't know who that is, like if for the people who are listening who might not have grown up on reserve, to find those people and to you know look up from your phone once in a while and make eye contact with the people that are walking past you and smile
Mm,
and build that connection because that's what feels really good. um, when I first quit drinking and I started weaving, it was easy for me to isolate because with the work that I do, I can stand at my loom for hours and weave by myself and listen to my music and my podcasts and just be on my own. And I remember when I started pulling on the canoe, I've never been an athlete. I've never wanted to play sports. I was awful at soccer. I didn't like it. I didn't want to play. I'm probably like the only native out there. um, my mom put me in like a little league when I was younger, and I faked shin splints on the sidelines. My dad came all the way from Nanaimo to watch me and like watched me sit on the sidelines the entire time. So when I found canoe, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like I can be on the canoe and I can kind of be by myself, even though like I'm on like a whole crew. And the first year, that's how I went into it, thinking I was going to be by
Mm,
myself, sitting on that because I liked being alone. And then the next year and the next year, my mind started shifting, and I started realizing this is more of a team sport than I think even soccer would be, because you really have to be in unison and you really
mm-hmm,
have to be, paying attention to everyone's breath and everybody's paddle.
mm,
And that shifted my mindset on community as well. And so, yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice is to build those connections and to, um, you know, not. I think I've seen a few things go around online where it said if you want to have a village, you have to be the village. So you have to
mm,
show up for the people that you love and care about. And sometimes that means inconveniencing yourself, doing things that you might not want to do, or driving your friends somewhere, or running errands, or dropping off dinner, babysitting the kids, like building that community, because it's so easy to get lost in being an individual these days with like our phones um, and how busy our lives can get. It's easy to say, well, I don't have time to go visit my mom today. I don't have time to go see my friends today. But I know that, like, from experience recently and like opening up my energy to new connections and to new people, that when I build those connections with others and I'm in community and then I leave, I feel so good. I feel much better than when I'm sitting at home by myself. So
mm,
I encourage anybody listening to, like, I tried the last few Sundays, I've been doing this thing where I leave my phone connected to its cord on the counter all day. I
mm,
don't take it around the house with me. I don't scroll. If I want to scroll, I have to stand at the counter. Um, I don't take it on my walks with my dog. I don't take it to yoga. I don't take it shopping. And it's been a huge eye opener for me because now I can't listen to music. I have to like listen to the radio. I can't pay for parking. All these small little like inconveniences, but I'm so much more present throughout the
mm,
day. And so I find that I people seem to be friendlier because I have to look up and I have to smile and I have to make conversation. And so, yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice for anyone listening is to just make those small efforts to build more community and connection with the people around you. Because with like all the things going on in the world right now and how scary it can feel, what feels
mm,
good is having other people in your lives who you're not only showing up for, but who show up for you. So,
mm, I guess, yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who that resonates with, and I really appreciate your wisdom and your guidance throughout that, and you sharing your own practices. Means a lot to me, and I'm sure it'll mean a lot to others as well. And as we're taking a look into um, closing our time here together, just love to give you the opportunity to share with our audience a little bit about what you have going on in your life with the work you're doing, and if anyone's wanting to get in touch with you to see if you can collaborate together, give you that opportunity to share.
sure. So I quit my job. I've been working in an office and working in corporate my whole life, and I quit doing that last year in March. And it was the scariest and the best decision that I've ever made. And so now I say artist, but my mom is she's very firm in that we're not artists, that this is just a way of life and it's what we do. And so I'm a weaver and I weave full time. And we co-own a shop on Granville Island called Salish Blanket Co., which you can follow on Instagram. And what we do there is we weave handmade blankets, and then which are commission based work only. And then we take those images and we manufacture them on commercial cotton looms. And so we sell blankets there for like commercial purposes. So if someone wants to come to the shop on Granville Island, Salish Blanket Co., you can buy 100% cotton blankets there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I have a few residencies coming up this year that I'm really excited about. I'll be in UBC for with a residency called Fleet at a new fiber farm happening out here in UBC for May and June. I'll be in Metchosin near Victoria, Souk area. I'll be there for the month of September, and then I have another exciting residency that I haven't quite announced yet, but that will be at the end of November after Fashion Week. And so, yeah, lots of really great and exciting things happening. And we host some workshops, and so if anyone ever wants to learn how to weave, they're more than welcome to reach out. I always kind of ask my mom, like, how are we going to teach Salish weaving without teaching Salish weaving? Because most people are respectful when they want to learn how to weave, but you also don't want those few bad apples who are going to walk away and say, well, I'm going to do this when they don't really have the rights. So the way that my mom frames it when she taught at Langara was, like we said, everybody comes from a textile culture. And so if you want to weave and you're not Indigenous, like, go back into your culture and your history and find out what kind of patterns your people were doing and bring them back. And maybe we can find ways to incorporate that into the weaving that you're going to do, because every culture has tabby, twill, and twine, and that's what we use. And so, yeah, if anyone is ever interested in learning, feel free to reach out on Instagram, or Salish Blanket Co. also has a website.
Haichka. Yeah, thank you so much, Aleen, for your time today, and I really appreciate you sharing your stories and your teachings with me and with our community here at the Culture is Healing podcast. And I want to thank our listeners for continuing to come back. And thank you all so much for your time, and hope to catch you all in the next episode, everyone.
Great.
Take care.
Thank you, George. Yeah.
Aichka. Te ewer.